I am really excited Dan's come back to give an updated version of this talk. Optimizely is, I don't just say this because he's in the room, it truly is just an amazing product. Really loved it the minute I saw it, because I had struggled as a product manager at Google with implementing experiments in a more useful fashion. Would have loved to have had something as simple as Optimizely when I was running products, both before Google and then once I got here. It's a tool that I think almost everyone in the portfolio in some fashion can benefit from. And I think it's so simple that it allows you to learn more than you thought you could know, really in sort of immediate feedback loops. So Dan's going to come and talk a little bit about not just Optimizely, but the concept of A/B testing in general, how to do it, what to learn from it, when not to do it, and then talk specifically to questions you've got, and is happy to do live experiments as well. And so with that, I'm going to turn it over to Dan, who is a former Googler, was a buddy of mine when he was here, and then went to the Obama campaign in 2008, and now is running Optimizely. So Dan, thanks again, Rick, for being here.
All right.
The mic is on.
Yep. Can you all hear me? Great. So thanks, Rick, for that introduction. As Rick mentioned, I'm the co-founder and CEO of Optimizely. And we built a product a couple years ago, trying to build the product I wish we had in 2008 while I was the director of analytics on the Obama campaign, to make it easy for anybody to do A/B testing. So today I'm going to walk you through shortly, briefly, just a little bit of our story, me and my co-founder's story, and then tell you a little bit about why I left Google, where I was product manager, to go to the Obama campaign, and then tell you some of the lessons we learned during that campaign, and now having worked with over 3,000 customers subsequent to that, we've learned a lot about what works well and what doesn't work well when it comes to A/B testing. So let me dive right in and tell you a little bit about our story. So this is me and my co-founder. We met at Google. We were both associate product managers here. This is Pete Kumin. And the two of us had a path, two different paths to Optimizely. I was at Stanford, where I studied computer science. Pete was at University of Illinois. He dropped out of a PhD program there and joined Google. At Google, we were both part of the APM program, and in November of 2007, I was lucky enough to sneak in to see Barack Obama speak when he came to Google. And while he was here, he gave this talk about how he wanted to take what we're doing at Google with evidence and science and feedback and data and bring that to the government. And that got me very excited, and I decided to initially take a leave. So I took a month off and then eventually quit my job for good, flew to Chicago and joined the campaign, where I started off as a volunteer and eventually turned into a job as the director of analytics. So before I go any further, I want to share a couple of short clips of what Barack Obama shared when he came to Google, and to help give you some context of why I decided to leave this great place.
What is the most efficient way to sort 1,000,000 32-bit integers?
Well,
I'm sorry. Maybe
no. I think
that's not a.
I think the bubble sort would be the wrong way to go. I am a big believer in reason and facts and evidence and science and feedback. Everything that allows you to do what you do, that's what we should be doing in our government. I mean, I want people in technology. I want innovators and engineers and scientists like yourselves. I want you helping us make policy based on facts, based on reason. And I think that many of you can help me. So I want you to be involved. Thank you so much, everybody.
Well, he had me at bubble sort, but I took him literally on his call to action, and he wanted us to be involved. So I came out to the campaign. And this is what our desk looked like. This was the new media analytics team. We are part of what was broadly known as new media, which is basically all the things they didn't really understand. So anything that wasn't TV or radio fell into our group, including analytics. And here's another picture of us. This is the broader new media team. This is actually me here with my back to the TV while I'm setting up an A/B test, comparing a splash page with a picture of Bill Clinton while he's giving a speech at the Democratic National Convention versus Barack Obama. And this is everyone paying attention to the TV while I'm not. Please ignore all the Bud Lights in this photo. So let me talk to you a little bit about the lessons we learned in the campaign, but also, more importantly, the lessons we learned afterwards, having now worked with many customers who use Optimizely day in and day out. And I think those lessons will be broadly applicable to what you do and hopefully make you more successful when it comes to making better data-driven decisions. So the first lesson is to define success. For us, this is what that meant. This is the inauguration. But really, by define success, what I mean is to define quantifiable success metrics. Because by defining quantifiable success metrics, you can understand whether all the things you're changing or moving are actually helping your bottom line. And one of the most common mistakes people make when they start A/B testing is they start changing things without understanding the holistic impact. So there's a couple ways you can do that. Here are 4 great tools you can use to quantify your success metrics. I recommend all 4 of them. Google Analytics is a great free tool. I assume many of the folks, and probably likely all of the folks watching this, are actually already using Google Analytics, or maybe they have it installed on their site. Maybe they don't log into it regularly, but they're definitely able to use it. There are 2 startups I recommend, Mixpanel and Kissmetrics. They're 2 great tools that help you understand the user flow, and I'll show you a picture of what that looks like. And then there's an enterprise, older school version of analytics that helps you understand quantifiable success metrics, and that's Omniture Site Catalyst. All 4 of these tools are great resources, so I'd encourage you to recommend them or check them out, and I can talk further if there's questions. I want to show you a little bit about what I think is useful in Google Analytics as well as in Mixpanel. Here's a photo or an image or screenshot of the visitors flow section in Google Analytics. And you can't see this all here, but basically what this tells you is the flow that people take through your website. And the reason why this is important is that it allows you to understand bottlenecks. As Donald Knuth famously said, the root of all evil is premature optimization. And so the corollary to that is if you want to actually have the biggest impact you can on what you're doing on your website, if you focus on your bottlenecks, the parts of the system where people drop off, bounce, or don't convert, that's where really you can have the biggest impact on your entire organization. Here's, I think, a slightly better visual explanation of what that means by a user flow. Here's a Mixpanel screenshot. And what this is showing you is the number of people who go through each step along a funnel. Here's the number of people who hit your home page, how many people convert from that to go into your sign-up page, from your sign-up page to signing up, and then eventually to purchasing. And when you look at the funnel like this, when you look at a flow like this, you can understand where those bottlenecks are. And so not only is defining quantifiable success metrics useful in terms of understanding whether you're actually going in the right direction, but it also helps you understand where you can start with optimization. So let me give you a concrete example of this. When I came to the campaign in November of 2007, this is before the Iowa caucuses, before anyone really heard about this guy, I started looking at some of the data and try to understand what is just general quantifiable success metrics. And when I looked at the data, this is what I found. We had a ton of people coming to our website, even before he was the nominee, who did a very cost-effective organic and as well as paid campaign to get that traffic. But then of the people who came to the website, very few of them tended to actually sign up with their email address. But the folks that did, we were doing a great job of raising money from them. And so this right away showed us that if we could just improve the middle part of that funnel, we'd be much more effective at raising money and also likely much more effective at getting volunteers and all the other calls to actions that you're able to do over email. So let me show you what we did. So we did an A/B test, and this is the page that we actually ran this experiment on. We used Google Website Optimizer to do this experiment. And in this experiment, we changed 2 parts of this page, or really a multivariate test. And what that means is we changed the top part of this page as well as this button over here. And I'll show you all the variations. And we have just enough for a statistically significant sample in this room. We'll actually have you guys vote on what you think was the most effective at getting people to sign up on this page. And so at a high level, just for folks who aren't familiar with it, what an A/B test is, this is a visualization of that. It's a bunch of people who come to your website. A system or tool will automatically show them one of many variations over the same period of time. And then that tool will measure the impact that variation had on all the conversion metrics you care about. Revenue, signups, donations, downloads, whatever you're trying to do on your website. OK, so here are the variations. And I'll show you each one. This is just the list of them. We had 4 buttons and then 6 media. And the buttons, we try them all head to head. The media, there are 3 images and 3 videos, and I'll show you all of them. And then after I show them to you, we'll do a quick vote. So keep track of the one you think performed the best. This is the sign up button, the learn more button, join us now button, and sign up now button. How many people think the sign up now button performed the best? Okay. 0. How many people think learn more performed the best? 2. How many people think sign up now? Okay. 0. And 1 abstention. So in this group, no. Join us now. Okay, join us now. Sounds good. So great. So in this group, it looks like it was a tie between learn more and join us now. In the media section, we had 3 images and then 3 videos. I'm not going to tell you what one until the end, so keep track of the media here that you think did well. So on the media section, this is the get involved image, family image, change image. This is Barack's video coming up.
Hi, I'm Barack Obama. Welcome to BarackObama.com, the official website of my campaign for president. Here you can sign up for invitations to campaign events and learn more about our movement for change.
Springfield video.
It's been a long time since I wanted to hear what a politician had to say.
You came here because you believe in what this country can be.
In Sam's video.
Now, even as we speak, there are those who are preparing to divide us. The spin masters, the negative ad peddlers, who embrace the politics of anything goes. Well, I say to them tonight, there is not a liberal America and a conservative America. There is the United States of America. There is not a black America and a white America and Latino America and Asian America. There's the United States of America. The pundits like to slice and dice our country into red states and blue states. Red states for Republicans, blue states for Democrats. But I've got news for them too. We worship an awesome God in the blue states, and we don't like federal agents poking around in our libraries in the red states.
All right, pick one of those 6. How many people think the get involved image performed the best? Okay, family image, 1. Change image, Brock's video. Okay, Springfield video, 1, and Sam's video. Okay, so it looks like Barack's video performed the best in this group. And here are the actual winners. The Learn More button, congratulations, and the family image. So this was a real surprise to us. We actually looked at this, and we were astonished to see that the Sam's video, which is the one that was actually the fan favorite within the campaign, didn't win. And part of the reason we actually did this experiment was just to prove how right we actually thought we were. It wasn't really like an objective test of, oh, could any of these images? It's like, oh, okay, let's put some baselines in there to see how all that effort we put into making these videos was worth it, and realized after actually looking at the data, and here's the actual results for this experiment. When looking at the data, we found that the Learn More button performed significantly better than any other button. Learn More button had a sign-up rate of 8.9% compared to 7.5% for the control. And if you look at all of the images, they perform better than all of the videos. And in fact, the best image, the family image, performed significantly better than the worst 2 videos, which were Sam's video and Springfield video. If you take the button that worked best, Learn More, and you combine it with the family image, this is what you get. This is the actual results from this experiment. This is combination 11 is that combination, the Learn More button with the family image. That improved the sign-up rate on this page by 40%. So after running this experiment in November, December of 2007, we actually did a holdout experiment to see the impact this had over the entire rest of the campaign. And this is what we found. In the 40.6% translated to another 2.9, 2.8 million new people on this email list, which is a great lift. Of those, 10% roughly volunteered, so another 288,000 volunteers. And what I think was most impressive was, since I said in the beginning we did a great job of raising money from this email list, having that many more email addresses on that list, those people actually contributed an incremental $57 million in donations through the length of the campaign. So it really shows you the impact of not only defining quantifiable success metrics, but using those quantifiable success metrics to understand the bottlenecks in your funnel and then optimizing and running an experiment to improve that bottleneck. So lesson 1, define quantifiable success metrics. Lesson 2, explore before you refine. This is a lesson I actually learned only after the campaign because having now worked with many customers, I can start seeing the patterns around what works well from an organizational point of view on what you should start testing with and what you shouldn't. And another common temptation people have is to take their existing website and just make a small refinement. Just start off by doing an incremental change, maybe add an exclamation mark at the end of the sentence. And I understand the natural temptation to do that because that's easier to get buy-in. It's easier to convince your boss to do that. The challenge there is that you end up doing something like this. You end up refining and refining and refining, and you miss the best possible solution. If you explore the solution space, do a breadth-first search before a depth-first search, you can actually find many alternative solutions that are much better than what you started with. And then you can refine from there. And in doing that, you actually are going to get a much better outcome from the experimentation. You're going to likely see a much more dramatic increase in everything you're trying to do on your website. And this is really rooted in the fact that most people overvalue how good their website already is. And if you have a humble approach to that, you can say, hey, let's take a step back. Let's do a dramatic exploration of the solution space. Experiment on that, and then refine from there. And I'll show you an example. This is an Optimizely customer, ABC Family. And they used Optimizely to experiment on their ABC Family homepage. This is at the top what the page used to look like. And this page used to look like this, where it suggested a new show you might consider watching. This is The Lying Game, all new on Mondays. This is the kind of thing, organizationally, most people would have thought to put on a homepage because that's what they put on their TV show. During a commercial break, they'll put a promotion for a show you might not have heard of. It turns out, by understanding a little bit about what people were searching for up here in the top right, there is a hypothesis that somebody at the team generated that said what people are actually looking for when they come to the ABC Family homepage isn't a promotion for a show that they hadn't seen before, but really to explore and find the specific show and episode name of the thing that they had missed. And so they dramatically changed this layout. They made a big emphasis on finding specific shows and watching them in a very text-heavy, dramatic, very hierarchical way. And by doing that, their goal was to try and increase engagement by 10 or 20%. Where engagement is defined as just the percentage of visitors who click on any part of this experiment page. They're shocked to see engagement increase by 600%. This dramatically improved the effectiveness of getting somebody who lands on this page to engage in their site. This is a perfect example of exploring before you refine. So that's lesson 2, explore before you refine. I'll show you a refinement they made in a future lesson, but that's lesson 2. Lesson 3. Less is more. Reduce choices. Here are a couple of examples. This is a startup out in the Northeast called SeeClickFix, and they have a website that had in the past a big map that allowed you to see where neighborhood issues were being reported. Their website allows you to actually report neighborhood issues and then see them when they get fixed. In this case, this map was a huge engineering endeavor. They had a dynamic map that pops up, moves it around. Lots of stuff going on the page. And they want, again, this is one of those tests where they wanted to see how does that compare to some just simpler version, some simpler landing page. This is what they found, that this landing page down here below, the much simpler one with a simple call to action and a form, increased engagement by 8%. So all that engineering effort was wasted on building something that performed much worse than something that was just a simple form with a text line. Here's another Optimizely customer. This is One Kings Lane, their furniture e-commerce site. And on their site, when you come to their site, one of the things they do that's very unique is they encourage almost everybody, including people who've never purchased or people who aren't purchasing, to sign up on their email list. And that gives them the ability to then follow up with them through email, as well as gives them an account, and they can start personalizing offers to them. And so it's very important for them to get as many people as they can to sign up on this form. And so they decided to remove 2 form fields, the confirm email step and the zip code step. And doing that increased signups by 8.4%, just by removing 2 fields that they didn't really need. So less is more. Here's another example. This is actually a great example of a refinement, not an exploration. This is one of those things that they wanted to do because it was an easy test. They wanted to see a quick win from Optimizely. And this is AVG Australia. Here they sell antivirus software. And they took a playbook from Amazon. And what they did is they just removed these links at the top. This is during their e-commerce funnel at the very last step, right when you say continue and you actually purchase these particular products. They removed the ability for somebody to navigate away from this page, to actually go back to the home page or the business page or company or support. Just doing that increased the dollars per visitor by almost 17%. So less is more. Reduce choices. Lesson 4, words matter. focus on your call to action. Here we'll do one last vote in this room. This is another example from the Obama campaign. This is the button that showed up in the upper right-hand corner of barackobama.com. And the metric we were trying to improve here and trying to optimize was the dollars per page view, the dollars that the campaign was able to subsequently raise after somebody saw one of these 5 buttons. So we ran an experiment and tested which one was the most effective. So in terms of that metric, dollars per page view, pick one of these 5 that you think performed the best. And since they're all here, we can just do a straight vote. How many people think Donate Now performed the best? Okay. Please donate. Why donate? Okay. Donate and get a gift. And contribute. Okay. So contribute seems to have won in this room. And I hate to report this, but it turns out you're all wrong. It really mattered what we knew about the person. And that made a huge impact on which button was most effective at getting them to donate. So if, for example, they never signed up on our email list or never donated, the best button to show them was donate and get a gift. And we took into account the fulfillment cost of the free t-shirt or car magnet that we would send. But if you had actually signed up on our mailing list but never donated, that button didn't do very well because of the fulfillment costs. And so actually, please donate performed the best. And probably most interestingly, if you had previously donated, we knew for a fact that you must have seen Donate Now in the past, because that was the only button we used on our site. And so just by changing that one button, that one call to action, to something different than that, something else that we tested in any of these cases, 3 different versions, please donate, get a gift, and contribute, that had over 10% lift in dollars per page view. So words really do matter. Here's another startup, an Optimizely customer. They tested changing this call to action, free trial, to saying try it free. And this falls in line with one of the general rules I recommend, which is not always true, but is a good starting point, which is if you want somebody to do something, tell them to do it. In this case, they want them to try this thing for free, so say try it free. There's a verb there. And that increased the click-through rate by 15%, also increased the number of signups by 15%. So it really fell through the entire funnel. Now, I say that's not always true because here's a great counterexample to that. And I purposely put this right after that because I felt this was a really interesting example. This is, again, ABC Family. And so ABC Family actually ran an experiment in the bottom left-hand corner of that same page I showed you earlier, which is a slider that lets you watch episodes for particular shows. And the only change they tried here was this call to action at the top, full episodes versus watch episodes. And I would have thought that watch episodes would perform better because it says to somebody directly, tell them what you want them to do something, tell them to do it. But in line with that observation they made earlier, that people are actually coming here to catch up on full episodes they might have missed earlier, full episodes actually improved the click-through rate by 10%. And also very satisfying to them, it also increased the number of video consumed by 10%, as well as the amount of ad dollars they're able to raise from showing those videos by 10%. Here's probably, I think, the most impactful example and the one I'm most proud of. This is an early Optimizely customer. They ran, this is the Clinton Bush Haiti Fund. It's a fundraising organization that was put together after the earthquake in Haiti. And they ran several experiments, and I have a bunch more I can show later if people have questions. And in these experiments, they wanted to understand what was the amount of money, the maximum dollars per page view they could get for somebody landing on this page and getting them to donate. And in this one example, this one A/B test, all they changed was the word submit to saying the phrase support Haiti. And that one single change in this experiment increased the dollars per visitor by 16%. It not only increased the number of people donating, the conversion rate, but the average donation amount went up as well. So words matter. Focus on your call to action. Lesson 5 is to fail fast. And this is, I hate to throw an existing customer under the bus, but I think it's a useful learning exercise. This is IGN, another Optimizely customer. And one of the things that you'll commonly hear if you hear people talk about A/B testing or experimentation, they like to only show things that actually work and are up and to the right. The reality is sometimes when you test something, it actually hurts performance. And the lesson there is to actually do that in a way that you're able to fail fast. Understand quickly whether or not something is performing worse than the control. Make sure you have statistical significance. And if that's the case, pause that variation or shut down that experiment and go with a variation that's working. Typically, if you run a comparison of your original page with 3 or 4 others, 1 or 2 will outperform the original, 1 or 2 will underperform. And in this case, this is actually a simple example. This is IGN. They on their top navigation on their site, it's a video game site, they had a link here to the videos section. and they wanted to increase the click-through rate onto this section because they make a lot of money from showing video ads. And so they ran an experiment, moving this over here to the left. In the past, a decision like this would have been made using a method known as the hippo syndrome, the highest paid person's opinion. You get in a room together, everyone says, hey, let's get more video ads. Well, how about let's move that link over there. That's a great idea. When they did that, they're shocked to see that this decreased the click-through rate of this link by 92%. And looking back at it, usually with hindsight, these things make a lot more sense. They realized it's probably because a lot of the traffic that had come into this experiment was returning visitors, people who are used to coming to IGN.com, clicking on that videos link. And now that it's not there, they're not going to go hunt and peck and look where that is. They're just going to give up and move on, do something else. And so the right solution here, well, in this case, they actually very quickly, after several hours of getting statistically significant results, decided to pause that variation. But the right approach would have been to actually segment their users, returning users from new users, and understand the difference in those two groups, and then make a decision based off of that. So lesson 5, fail fast. And lesson 6 is to start today. So I hope to inspire you to start today. And there's a couple ways you can do that. Unfortunately, Google Website Optimizer, the tool we used in the Obama campaign, is no longer available. They sunset that product. But there are features available in Google Analytics, one in particular called Google Analytics Content Experiments, which is a free tool that allows you to do redirect experiments. You split different parts of the page and just redirect it. So I encourage you, if you want to get started, you can try that. In addition to that, we also, during the Obama campaign, used Omniture Test and Target. Both Google Website Optimizer and Omniture Test and Target brought us a ton of value during the campaign, but we were constantly bottlenecked on requiring a developer to be involved. We needed an engineer to be part of the process in order to implement each step of the way. Every experiment, every variation, you needed to go back to set up the experiment and then tear down the experiment afterwards. And so that pain point was the reason why I started Optimizely, which is to make it easy for anybody to do A/B testing without requiring a developer to be involved. And here's a handful of some of our larger customers: Starbucks, Salesforce, Crate & Barrel. And I want to actually show you a live demo of using this product to help inspire you to start today. So here is our homepage. And the way to get started with Optimizely, which is pretty unique, is that all you need to do is just enter the URL that you want to test into our homepage. In this case, I'm glad to also do experiments with several of the folks who want to have their page tested right here. But I'm going to start off with Intuit. And so all you need to do is enter the URL you want to test into our homepage, click Test It Out, and this will load Intuit.com into our visual editor. In this visual editor, at the top of the page, you see controls to manage your experiment. And below is actually where the real action happens. As I move my mouse over different parts of this page, a blue rectangle shows up telling me that's a part of the page that I can run an experiment on. And so if I were, let's say, a marketer working at Intuit, and I was in charge of marketing the Intuit Go payment product, which is a direct competitor or knockoff to Square, I might say, well, instead of saying accept credit cards anywhere, I will click on that headline, and I have a bunch of options how I change this. In this case, I'll say edit element, edit text. And instead of this, I'll say it's not for squares. So very quickly, very visually, without understanding HTML or CSS or JavaScript, I can make a change to my website, click the original, see what it looks like compared to the original page. And if I want to just start an experiment today, just with this one simple A/B test, all I need to do to implement Optimizely is a one-time copy and paste of a single line of code. Once this line of code is on your website, you never have to change it. And that's fundamentally the difference between Optimizely and every other product out there, is it doesn't require you to instrument each element that you want to test. It's a one-time implementation. So that's a simple example. And A/B testing isn't just A/B. It's A/B ... N testing. So let's do another variation. In this case, I'll create variation 2. And in this particular experiment, or this variation, I'm going to take this picture of these two cute lovebirds and change it with another picture. I say, click on that image, edit element, change image. And I happen to have an image on my computer that might work a little bit better called Intuit Guy. And now I have an image that I've actually taken from my desktop, uploaded to Akamai. Optimizely does that for you on your behalf, host it there for free for you. So you don't have to worry about your content management system or your image library or asset library or talking to the design team, all of the organizational bottlenecks that prevented marketers from doing these kinds of experiments earlier. And you can directly upload it to your website. Fortunately, this is a bit hard to read. So what I'll also do is take this block of text and click Move and Resize and just drag it over here. Pretty easy. And then since this is dark, I'll just lighten up this text a little bit. And there you have it. So it's just a simple few clicks of my mouse. I can make a dramatically new variation of this page, quickly compare it to the original page, and all I need to do to implement this experiment is a single one-time copy and paste of a line of code that never changes. Now, running an experiment or an A/B test isn't just about setting up the experiment, but it's also about setting goals. Like I said in the beginning, the first lesson was to define quantifiable success metrics. So in this case, a quantifiable success metric you may want to measure is the number of clicks, and I'll click track clicks, create new click goal, the number of clicks on this particular apply now button. And what this will do is actually measure the number of clicks this button gets for each of the variations that you've created. And it'll also show you a measure of statistical confidence as to whether the differences you're seeing are due to chance or because of the change you made. So you create this goal, now you can actually, in the results page for Optimizely, see that variation and see for each variation the click-through rate. So I'll quickly open up an experiment we actually ran on our homepage. We actually ran an experiment. We actually ate our own dog food, ran Optimizely on Optimizely. And I can actually pull up in our blog post, we talked about this. We actually have a great blog that talks about different case studies. But in our blog post, we talk about the homepage test. This was actually, in fact, our 100,000th experiment that we ran on Optimizely. And we tested a couple different things when we actually did this experiment. We wanted to measure the number of people who created experiments in Optimizely. We also wanted to understand the number of people who, let's see, here's the case study. The number of people who actually became active customers in an entire funnel, and then also wanted to understand, here we go, Optimizely's 100,000th experiment, total site redesign. I'll show you some images. I encourage you to check out our blog. This is actually the before and after. So this is what our homepage looked like before. This is what it looked like afterwards. We also changed some other parts, like the About page. I'm convinced the reason this experiment did so well is because they got rid of my ugly face. And so this is the before picture of the About page and the after of the About page. But what's interesting is the actual results. So these are the live results from this experiment. We had 17,514 unique visitors be part of this experiment. And then we had them get bucketed into one of two variations, the redesign or the original site. Roughly 8,700 per variation. And then we measured a bunch of conversion goals. And so this is one of those other things that was really frustrating back when you were using Google Website Optimizer, is that it would only allow you to measure one singular conversion event, one checkout page, or one purchase. Where really for us, it was important to us to understand the holistic impact of all of the things we were measuring. So in this case, we checked out how many people used our editor. So if you look down here, uses editor is one of the goals we were measuring. And here you can see the number of people who converted. So we increased the number of people who actually used our editor after seeing this new page from 23% to 28%. That was an improvement of 23%. And we also tell you the statistical likelihood that was due to chance. In this case, we know very confidently that the difference you're noticing was because of this experiment. What I think is the coolest part of this entire dashboard is the conversion rate over time graph. And this graph is actually cumulative. And so you can visually see whether or not the two variations are diverging from one another. And without even understanding any math or statistics, if you see these lines zigzagging on top of each other, you know it's very likely that you don't have a statistically significant winner, even though at the time of looking at the experiment, one might be higher than the other. If you see these two lines converge and actually split apart and have this big gap between them, you know it's likely that this was due to the change you made, not due to random chance. We also tested how many people created an experiment. In that case, we also had a statistically significant increase. How many people visited certain pages, how many people actually engaged, et cetera. Basically, this experiment told us that this new redesign was much better than the original page. So this was an example of exploring before you refine. We're now doing a bunch of refinements. We're going to publish a lot of that as well about different things we're doing on pricing. But for now, this is the exploration step of our homepage redesign. So that's Optimizely. Hopefully, I've inspired you to start today. And I'll just end by recapping, and then I'll be glad to answer any questions that you have, both here and if you are watching this remotely, please type in your questions into the Google Doc. But I want to recap the lessons. Lesson number 1, define quantifiable success metrics. Lesson 2, explore before you refine. Lesson 3, less is more, reduce choices. Lesson 4, words matter. Focus on your call to action. And lesson 5, fail fast. Lesson 6, start today. Thank you very much. All right. So I'm going to read the questions, and then I will give them my best answer. So feel free to fill them in. And if also there's a couple folks who actually offer to show their site. So I'll actually load those in the editor while I answer questions. I'll just load these. And to be clear, none of the folks, I believe, who've actually asked for me to look at their website are actual customers today, as far as I know. Let's see, Puppet Labs. And what I'm going to do is, because Optimizely allows you to actually create experiments without having that snippet on the page, you can actually type in any URL. Let's see, Uber senses great advertising for these companies. And Retail Me Not. Oh, I believe Retail Me Not is a customer. OK. Let me just load these up. I'll come to these in a bit. Retail Me Not. OK. Let those load. And so let me just start answering questions. So the first question we have is A/B testing suggestions for native mobile apps. Any recommended frameworks out there, or is it all roll your own? So that's a great question, something we've thought a lot about. So native mobile testing is challenging because of the fact that the way that our architecture is set up in iOS or Android apps, it's very difficult to do on-the-fly manipulations of the visual experience. And it's all basically native code. So for example, the things that I showed earlier, like let's say this simple text change where I change this text line of code, underneath the hood, the way that we do that, if you click Edit Code down below, we actually show you. The actual code that we run both in the editor while you're testing it so you can see it, as well as live when your visitors come to your website, is just a line of JavaScript. This line of JavaScript manipulates this page, replaces it with this new element, and in doing that is able to actually change the page on the fly as the page loads. So that's one big advantage we have using JavaScript in a web browser. For native apps, you can't do that. Optimizely works great for the native app web view controls within a page, but the actual native experience you can't. So that's sort of the context. The best answer I have for you is that there is a framework out there called Clutch.io, which is an open source framework. We're hoping to extend that and actually help build a lot of that stuff directly into Optimizely. That company has been bought by Twitter, so they're not actively involved in that, but I'd encourage you to try it. And today, the state of the art in terms of A/B testing native apps requires you to roll a lot on your own, but I hope early next year that'll change. Next question. Thoughts around local/global maximum, aka change the text on a promotion page, might get more clicks/app downloads, but ultimately fewer sales and conversions at the end of the funnel. If so, which metrics to look at? So this is a great question. This actual question really touches on the explore before the find point I made earlier, and as well as talks a little bit about this idea of local maximum. So if you refine before you explore, you kind of reach a local maximum. You get to a point where the page that you're actually testing can only get so good because you started with a baseline that's only as good as it is. And so by actually exploring a dramatically different solution space, you can get to likely your global maximum much more quickly than if you just kept refining your existing page. The question of when you're actually looking at text that will actually impact maybe the first page but not subsequent pages, that's actually a relatively common thing to happen. If you increase, for example, in the Obama campaign, once we increased the the sign-up rate on that splash page, that did actually decrease the dollars per email recipient of the emails we sent, but the difference didn't make it a wash. It was basically, now we have more people who are probably maybe in the past lukewarm supporters were less likely to convert on that first step. And now in the next step, they're still less likely, but overall the impact was still the same. And this really shows the value of defining quantifiable success metrics. For most businesses, it's revenue. It's understanding the revenue impact. If you're a SaaS business, it's understanding your lifetime value and then looking at the conversion rate of getting new people to sign up as customers. If you have a good understanding of the lifetime value, then you can monetize it and understand, okay, maybe we're spending a ton more on customer acquisition costs, but because we increase lifetime value by this much, or increase the sign-up rate to get people to become customers, we know the lifetime value is this much, you can actually overall understand the holistic impact. Next question. What is the tool that you show on your slides to display computed results of multivariate tests after the campaign options? You showed it on Splash Page Experiment. So that tool is Google Website Optimizer. Unfortunately, the tool is no longer offered for new experiments in Google. And also, unfortunately, the version that they've launched as part of Google Analytics content experiments doesn't provide for multivariate testing. So your best alternative, I think, at this point would be to start off if you want to try something free and if you don't have budget to actually try a solution that that makes your life easier. You can try it the hard way with Google Analytics content experiments. They can't do multivariate testing, but if you want to go and do multivariate testing, try out Optimizely. We have a 30-day free trial. Yes, sir. Question. And if you could, I'll repeat the question, but yeah.
Can you go back to the One Kings Lane
Yeah.
slide?
The question is, can you go back to the One Kings Lane slide? And the answer to the question is yes.
Okay. When you removed, or they removed the confirm email field, was there any attempt to quantify how many more invalid emails they received?
Yeah. So the question is, once they removed the confirm email field, was there an attempt to quantify the number of incorrect emails they received? And so I do recall that they actually looked at this. They actually looked at the email, just anecdotally. They didn't do a sort of a holistic, okay, how many bounced, how many didn't. They looked at, okay, these are the emails we had before, these emails we're getting now. They should have done probably a likely much more rigorous way of knowing, hey, is this email address, even though we're getting more conversions, this is not an email address we can email later, and it creates a big pain for our customers. But that's a great point. I think any one of these experiments, this one is a great example, is there's a trade-off. You might get more signups, but the signups you're getting could be of lower quality because you're not having them confirm. For this particular case, actually, in the past, when anybody asks or they start doing these kind of tests, there's a great open source JavaScript library that will actually do client-side validation of email addresses before they get submitted. So for example, if somebody signs up with something at gmail.com, it'll say, hey, did you mean gmail.com? So that's a great thing to try, and I don't think One Kings Lane uses that. We're starting to use that on our site, and I think it's a great resource. Okay, next question. Can you isolate for cross-pollination? If you scroll up a little bit, sorry. Can you isolate for cross-pollination for simultaneous campaigns in Optimizely? So I think what this question is asking is around the interaction effect of multiple parts of the page that you're changing at the same time. And so you can do that in Optimizely. So the way to do that is using a multivariate test. So in this case, I think the root of this is the fact that you might run two parts. You might change two parts of the page, and if they interact in a way that's beneficial, you might want to know that. If they act in a way that's detrimental, or maybe they both independently look good, but when they're together, they both perform badly, you want to know that. So I'll answer the question by yes, you can do that, and I'll show you how to do that. And so in this case, let's make it simple. Let's change this. We'll delete this variation. We'll create 3 different headlines. Edit this text to make more money. And now we have one section, which is this tagline. So I'm going to create and change this experiment type to a multivariate test. And this first section I'm going to call our tagline. We have the money variation. We have the squares variation. And then we have the original page. And we'll just call this accept. And now what I can do and be able to actually understand the interaction effects and cross-pollination for simultaneous campaigns, as the question asks, I can create a new section. In this new section, let's just call this the top nav. And here, I might do something like, let's say, remove create a website, remove this, and definitely remove support. And now I have a half. Rename this to 3 top, and we have the 6 tops. It's a simple experiment, simple example. This is a 2x3 multivariate test, which is basically 2 A/B tests. That's why we've designed the tool in such a way that you can actually visually see that's really just 2 A/B tests running in parallel. And now when a visitor comes to this page, they'll initially get bucketed into one of these 3 variations, except, squares, or money, for the tagline section. And then they'll get also bucketed into one of these 2 variations, 6 tops or 3 tops, for the top nav section. And the way now you can understand, if there was an interaction effect, and actually I'll pull up the results page. I think I have to start this experiment, actually. And so if you look at the results page for this particular page, what we're actually showing you is the full factorial combination of all the changes. So now we have except, 6 tops, except, 3 tops. And so for each one of those, you essentially get bucketed into one of those now 6 combinations, akin to what I showed you for the multivariate test with Obama. And what's really cool is in Optimize that you can actually dive in and say for each section, OK, I really only want to let's collapse to just the top nav. And now if I look at the results for this, I only get the results for the top nav. Or if I only want to do the tagline, I can do that as well. And so it gives you a chance to actually run multiple A/B tests with no downside. You can actually, if you want to just ignore interaction effects and look at the impact for each section, you can do that directly in the tool. This is a dramatically different way than most testing platforms approach this, where they see A/B testing and multivariate testing as two dramatically different things, and you have to come up ahead of time with a preconceived notion of which one to use. So I don't want to answer too long this. One last note I'll make on this is that many people will try to espouse to you the benefits of running this great big multivariate test, billions of combinations. For example, if you go through the Omniture test and target process, sales process, that's one of the things they like to boast about, is like how great it is that you can do so many variations. The reason that they sell it that way, and the reason why they encourage people to do it that way, is that every test in those tools require this upfront cost of implementing little M boxes or sets of code on your site. With Optimizely, you can run as many experiments as you want, as fast as you want, so you don't have to worry about going back to your code every time. So we actually recommend to do simple A/B tests, a series of A/B tests where you incorporate the winner as you go along, and that will actually help you generate more hypotheses that are more valuable than at a preconceived notion of like, what's the best thing to test on my entire site. Okay, that.
Does Optimizely decide which bucket a visitor gets put into?
Yeah. The question is, how does Optimizely decide which bucket a visitor gets put into? And it's entirely random. So given a particular section or experiment, you're randomly allocated into one of those buckets. And if you want, we can give you controls over how that traffic allocation looks. So we have a traffic allocation feature here. And so you can actually see for each section, so example, in this case, for the tagline section, it's roughly 33% each. And then for the top nav, it's roughly 50-50. But if you want to customize that, pause it, change it, and overall, if you wanted to just say, I only want 10% of all traffic to see it, I can do that as well. So you don't have to have all your traffic go through the experiment. And we only charge you for the amount of traffic or the amount of unique visitors that are tested. All right, let's take some more questions up here, and then we'll do some live experiments. Does the JavaScript snippet have to load at the top of the document, or can it load near the close of the body? So the question is about this implementation snippet. And as I showed earlier, this implementation snippet is what powers that change that actually goes on in the page. And so since that's all done at JavaScript and it's on-the-fly DOM manipulation, ideally you put it at the head of the page so that you don't see this flicker, this page change that actually shows the original page and the new page. If you put it in the head, you're never going to see that. You're guaranteed of that. If you put it below, lower in the page, if you take the snippet and just put it at the bottom of your page, for example, there's a chance that as the elements load in the page, the browser will start showing those elements before everything's finished loading, and the manipulation you make will quickly show the original versus the new. And the concern people typically have here is, well, what is the response time? Is this going to slow down my site? And there's two things I'll say to that. One is that you can go to status.optimizely.com, and we show you the actual response time for this snippet. In this case, the snippet, we'll pull this up here. It's loaded in 102 milliseconds. And this snippet loads in parallel with the other resources on your site. So as long as the other resources on your site, which likely are 100 or 2 or milliseconds or longer, you won't see any impact in terms of loading time. The other thing I'll say is this snippet is hosted on Akamai. And so even if the snippet never loads, all you'll see, the original page will just be shown to the user. They're not going to have any catastrophic. Your site's not going to go down, for example. Next question. Is there a best practice for prioritizing the many ideas that people have for what to test? This is a really tough question because one of the biggest questions we get is, what should I test? And it's a hard question for us to answer because we're not a consulting company. We don't come in and tell you the strategic things that will help make your company more successful. We do have a bunch of partners, and I'll just highlight that, that are actually really good at this. So we have a certified partner program all over the world, a bunch of folks. So if you go to optimizely.com/partners, you can see this map. Talk to any of these guys. And these guys are all very, very good. Strategist in Chicago, for example, very good at helping you come up with those strategic testing plans. And inherent in this question is this trade-off. Like there's a long list of things we want to test. Which ones do we start with? My general recommendation is explore before you refine. Be humble and recognize your page probably isn't that great to start with. But then if you still have questions, the best way to get started is actually just start testing. It's one of those weird things that as you start testing, if you run that first experiment, you think it's going to answer questions for you. All it's going to do is make more questions. You're going to get more hypotheses that you want to test. And most of our successful customers have built this culture of testing where they start with one experiment, then they get addicted because they keep seeing the results that they get. So don't try to come up with this big year-long testing plan. Just get started today. OK, let's dive into a live. We have a bunch more questions, and thank you for all that. Let's dive into some quick demos. And so let's pull up, what's a good one here? This is good. I like this. Puppet Labs. So Puppet Labs is, it looks like, if your infrastructure is a special snowflake, you're doing IT wrong. Automate with Puppet. OK, so this is the enterprise version of Puppet, which is great. The the page as it is looks pretty dang good. Looks like this call to action over here is pretty important. So you may want to edit this. Instead of saying download free, see, that's one quick variation, download free today. So variation 1 versus the original page, that's one thing I'd recommend. Another variation you might consider is that on this resolution, this looks pretty good. You can actually see this button and this call to action pretty easily. But, well, first of all, you should track this. So I'll just say this is good housekeeping to say create new click call for downloads. So that way you know for each variation the different downloads that you actually have to your site. But I would also recommend, let's just move this a little bit over, move that over there. And I don't know if this actually, let's try, not sure if I'll be able to move this whole block, but yeah. So there, in this case, we can move this over. You can see if you actually, I think this is a background image. If you go back here and actually figure out what this underlying image, yeah, this is a list item. You can either hide it or change it with another image. That's a great solution. The other thing to do, I like this big prominent call to action. It looks like you've actually been testing it already. But this download button is a great thing to track as well. So you can track that, create a new click call, and track that. Other than that, it's already a pretty good landing page. I would also track the number of people who subscribe to your email newsletter. Obviously, all of these things, there's no cost in tracking more things. You just understand the trade-off. My guess is if you make changes to the download call to action, it's not going to change. It shouldn't change the people who subscribe down at the bottom of the page. And the last thing I would recommend testing here is to actually try different. It's one of those holy things that you don't want to test. It's like your tagline or what your marketing team has decided is like your positioning as a company. This is something I've had to get used to. Like we actually internally at Optimizely, I'm very much in love with this tagline that we've had from the beginning, which is A/B testing you'll actually use, which is sort of this backhanded slight of like all these tools out there that are a pain in the butt. But within our company, we already have ideas for different ways to test this. So we're actually, even though it's our pristine tagline that's like most people in companies, the hippo would make a decision about what that should be. I think there's a huge impact this will have on the likelihood somebody tries out the product. And I know that if they try the product, they're going to be happy customers. And so whatever we can do to increase the number of people who try the product, the better off we are. Let's see if there's any good examples here. So this is UberSense. This is pretty cool. Again, I would focus on the call to action here. Potentially even bring this above the fold. I think that's pretty valuable. One thing that so many of these are startups. This is not, but many of the ones that are startups will have this temptation to assume people know what they're doing when they land on the page. And so a great example, if you go back to LiveClick Inc., one of the things I think they did that was really valuable, and this is actually a great example for startups, this is SeeClickFix. I think one of the biggest reasons why this bottom variation performed so much better was that it actually said in an English sentence what they did. Most people who come to this website, and likely many of you in this audience will have forgotten what they did just from what I said earlier, but what you do with SeeClickFix is report neighborhood issues and see them get fixed. Just that one sentence, I'm sure, had a big impact on a novel visitor's experience of that site. So actually looking at this, I think that's a great thing to consider, looking at, for example, this site. Great, so let's get back to some questions. And I think we're probably running a little bit tight on time, but let's do this as best we can. We run our website in HTTPS mode. Is the Optimizely JavaScript compatible with secure mode? Likely answer, I see now it looks like it'd be OK because no mode is specified in the URL. Exactly right. So you answered your own question. This snippet of code that you put on your site, this two trailing forward slashes, many people think is a typo. In fact, we actually say usually it's down here, it's not a typo. That's just telling the browser to load this resource using the same protocol that the page that's including it is loaded in. So Optimizely works great on secure pages. In fact, that's usually where people get the most value on checkout pages, donation pages. Both the Obama campaign and Mitt Romney campaign this time around use Optimizely extensively to improve their entire donation funnel. In fact, one page, if you're looking for a cool case study, one page I'd recommend you check out is Kyle Rush's blog post about their use of Optimizely. And he attributes, they did 240 A/B tests using Optimizely in 2012 and had 49 increase in donation conversion rate. And that's hundreds of millions of dollars they're able to increase because of the experimentation they did with Optimizely.
Has there been any analysis of what Romney did differently?
The question is, has there been any analysis of what Romney did differently? So we're hoping that will come out. I think both campaigns this time around took data very seriously. I think where my personal experience looking at 2008, I think the McCain campaign did not. And so that's definitely a difference. I think I'm looking forward to Romney talking a little bit more openly, not him himself, but his campaign about some of the really great things they did with data. How do you know how long to run the test for statistical significance? Also a very good question. We give a rule of thumb here at the top of our page, which is really just a rule of thumb. And it says it takes 25 conversions and 100 visitors before we declare a winner. So that's the absolute minimum before we declare a winner. And so you can see there's two parts to this. It really comes down to the number of conversions you get and the number of visitors. Obviously, the more of both, the better. And if you have this challenge where one of the times people will be running a test and they're testing this very, very far off conversion event, something like maybe their e-commerce platform and they're testing whether somebody shares right after they buy something. It's something that has like 1% or 0.1% of actual conversions. One of the things that we recommend is to track micro conversions along the time. Maybe there's something that on that homepage is an indicator that they'll likely convert down the line, but is much, much more likely, and has at a much higher frequency in the first step. By doing that, they'll get statistical significance on that answer much quicker. And with Optimizely, you can track all of it anyway, so you can actually see the holistic impact there. The other thing I'll say about statistical significance is that if you're much more likely to get statistical significance, and part of the reasons I recommend explore before you refine, is the bigger the change is, the more likely you'll get statistical significance. If you're just adding an exclamation mark at the end of a sentence, it'll take you a long time to get statistical significance. Whereas if it's a dramatic change, one way or the other, it's better or worse, and you'll find out very quickly. And the next question has just got typed in real time. Can you use Optimizely to track bounces or exits based on a test? You can track one thing, which is engagement, which is sort of the inverse of bounce rate, which is the percentage, and that's in fact the default goal we include for everybody, which is the percentage of visitors who clicked on any part of the page. That works pretty well, and we prefer to put it in this light because the way that we do tracking is all through JavaScript asynchronous tracking calls. When somebody leaves a page, it's kind of hard to sneak in, hey, they just left, and then usually some of those will get dropped off. So it's an unreliable way to see whether somebody's left the page. But any of those goals that you want to track, as for example, you could, if you wanted to implement that, we have a notion of custom goals. So in Optimizely, you can create as many goals as you like, including custom goals. So I'll show you an example of create a new goal. You can say custom events, and here you use our JavaScript API. We have a whole knowledge base explaining how to do this. So if you wanted to instrument a goal that was an exit goal or a bounce goal, you could do that, but we recommend using engagement. All right. I think I've exhausted all the questions online. Are there any other questions in the room? All right. Well, with that, I think we've come up to the top of the hour. So thank you very much for attending, and I really appreciate it. And good luck A/B testing.
Thank you very much, Dan. Again, it's funny, one of the tweets I just saw was, I think it was at Puppet, somebody has a new company crush on Optimizely, seeing this. And that was, I mean, that was my reaction the first time I saw Optimizely. It was, it takes what you feel intuitively is, it has to be something that involves engineering. I know on some of the products I ran at Google that the frameworks that we had for doing the experiments that we did were often very involved. And I knew I had to work with our engineers to push new experiments to production. Just the notion of being able to do this in real time and start seeing data come in as soon as you commit that experiment through the Optimizely interface is just tremendously addictive. So it's something that it was great to see. It was actually really fun. I haven't shared this story with Dan, but I was trying to explain A/B testing to my dad. I happen to have been very politically active, like Dan. I've been involved in Obama campaigns back to 2004 when I lived in Illinois. My dad's a big Republican, so I didn't want to try and explain to him in the context of some of my candidates what they were doing. So I tried to use the Romney campaign, and I thought I had heard that they were using Optimizely. So I opened up two windows in Chrome. I opened up in an incognito window, and I opened up in my normal Chrome instance, and showed him the two pages, and then showed him as I went through the site the fact that I was seeing different options in the navigation bar. And even for somebody, my dad's not technical at all, he immediately started thinking about, oh my God, I could start doing this on our website in how we present products, in how we describe features, in how we explain who we are, what we do, and you could just start to see the seed grow. It really is an exciting thing. So it was my first case where I had thought I would see A/B testing in the wild and was able to show side by side. It was awesome. Really cool. Couple of things to ask for of folks who are watching, of folks who are here in the room. You'll see a feedback form. As always, please take a minute or two. Let us know how we did. I share the results not only with our speakers, but with folks on the Google Ventures team. It's really helpful to get a sense of, are we hitting the mark, right? The most important things for me, even more important than the how satisfied were you with the workshop, how likely are you to apply what you heard today in the next 30 days. Ultimately, for me, that's the benchmark of whether or not I'm doing my job. I see my responsibility as finding the things that are immediately actionable. Last week's latency workshop was a great example where we had a couple of websites went from plus 10%, plus 10-second load times to under 1-second load times in a day. So when you can have that kind of impact immediately, then I think we're really doing what we're supposed to be doing with the Startup Lab. Feel free to tell your friends, right? One of the things I'm really focused on in 2013 is going from the foundation we've built in 2012, which is hopefully making a real impact on the companies in the portfolio, to being seen as a source of interest among entrepreneurs and investors. If a company knows that they'll get access to the kinds of things we're doing at the Startup Lab, that makes us a more interesting, attractive investor. That's certainly part of the thesis behind why we've made the investment we've made in these programs, in these exercises. So part of the way we do that is by you sharing hopefully good experiences with others, whether that's on Twitter, whether that's face-to-face, letting us know if we're missing the mark, but also when we are hitting it, letting others know is a huge, huge help. Some of you have indicated you'd be willing to write blog posts. If you want to, we're happy to give you that visibility on our own blog. We're happy to see sort of those testimonials or lessons learned that we can share with others in the portfolio. And keep an eye on the workshop archives. As I said, this recording will be up online later today. You can share with others inside the company. And again, as a final reminder, everything we do here is open to everyone at all of our companies. This is not something that's reserved to the leadership within a company. It is something that we really want to make available to every employee across the entire portfolio. That numbers well into the several thousands across our entire portfolio. I have about 500 of you who are currently on the announcement list, currently have access to the videos. Would love to see that number grow. So I'll wrap up. Again, thanks to Dan for your time. This wasn't a new company crush for me, but certainly a renewed company crush. And I look forward to hearing from all of you as you let me know what else we can be doing at the Startup Lab. Very eager to hear that. So thanks for taking the time. We'll wrap up and hope to see you again in the new year. Take care.